Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about database models in Django. I will talk about how to design them, how things are connected to each other, and give you some examples. So if you're interested in learning more about Django database models, then this is the video for you. So we are going to end up with something like this. As you can see down here, just want to see the canvas here. As you can see, we have a few tables, and I'm going to show you how to set up everything of this, how these are connected through foreign keys, many-to-many fields, and what to use when and where. So I'm just going to begin with the empty document here in this eraser app, just to see where we start as the base. But before I do anything more here, I just want to show you that here in Visual Studio Code I have a completely blank Django project, nothing in it, no apps or anything. So before you continue, maybe you want to create an empty Django project. So let me just create a new empty project here, new file, just so that we can begin at the beginning. Okay, let me just remove everything here. So built into Django we have something called the user database model. This handles everything from email, username, first and last name, when the user was created, handling passwords and similar. So I'm just going to set it up here so you can see how we're going to connect this to other things in Django. You don't have to think about the syntax on this. This is just for setting up the table here. So usually each of these fields have an ID. Almost all tables in Django have an ID, which is default a big int, which is a big integer, and this is usually also the primary key. So you can refer to this as the ID or the PK. And then we have the first name here as well, first name, which is usually a char field. And a char field is a field where we can store things like name, last name, title for blog posts, and the other types of strings that is usually less than 255 characters. So I'm not going to add more to this because I just want to show you how the user database table is connected to other tables in a system. So let me just set up one more table here. This can be a team. So the example I'm going to use in this tutorial will be something similar to a project management system where you usually have a team, and a team can have multiple members or users, and the team can also have projects, and the project can have to-do lists, and the to-do lists can have tasks. So then you might wonder, how can we connect two tables to each other? For this we're going to use something called a foreign key. So here I can add a new field called users, many-to-many field. And by the way, I will show you in Django later in this tutorial how to set up all of this. So right now this is just to show you how it is connected. And the team should also have a name variable. So name, this can be a char field, and the ID. Like that. So how can you connect this field to this now? That is where the many-to-many field comes in. What this means is that the team can have multiple users in this field here, and a user can also be member or a user in multiple teams. So let me just connect these two by setting team.users, point that to user.id. So now you can see that this field here is now connected to this one. So let's return to Django and set this up. before we continue adding more stuff. So right now we just have the default Django project, so let's create a new app for the teams. So Python mentioned by start app team. And then we can add this to the database. Sorry, we can add this to the installed apps team, and then in here we create the database model for the teams. So class team models.model, and then you can see here in this app that I have an ID field. This is default for Django, so I don't have to add this, but I want the name, and that is the name for the team. Set this to be a char field and set the max length to 255. And then I want the users field here. Users equals models.many to many field user, like that. Okay, so now you see here that I get a warning because user is not defined. So let's import this from Django. From Django.contrib.auth.models import user. I think this should be correct. It's probably just my editor that can't find this. So now we have a connection between the team and the built-in database model user. So if I now save and run the make migrations to create the database file, Python mentioned by migrate. Great. So now we have this. Now we have a connection there. I can create a super user just so that we can log into admin interface and test this. Python mentioned by create super user. Great. So then I can run the server as well and open it in the browser. So if I go to /admin, I can log in with the user I just created. You can see here that I have one user, the admin user, but team isn't appearing there because we need to add it here as first. From .models import team admin.site.register team. So now we should be able to use this here in the admin interface. So if I now create a new team, team1 can have this user, save. So if I go in here again now, you can see that the name of the team and the connection to this one. And this connection is done through this one here. Nice. Okay, so let's expand a little bit on this now. I want a team to be able to have multiple clients. And the clients can, for example, be, let's say that you run a web agency and you have multiple clients. So let's just create that first here, very quick. Client icon, you can just use the user icon here as well. And this should also have the big integer primary key field. And I want a reference from the client back to the team. And since a project should only be able to have one team, and the team should be able to have multiple clients, we can't use the many-to-many field here. So here we will need to use the foreign key on the client table. So here as a team foreign key, key, and I want the name field here as well, so I can copy that from the team there. And I want to know when this was created. So created at should be a date time field. Okay, so what I need to do now is to have a connection between this and this. So a connection between these two. So down here I can just say client.team pointed to team.id. So if I just zoom out, a little bit, you can see here that the team is now connected to the users, but the team ID is also connected to the team field on the client side. Okay, so if I now say that I want a new app for the client as well, then I need to create that here. So Python py start app client. Before I continue, I just want to say thanks to all of my patrons. If you too want to support me, you will find a link in the description below. And then we can create the database model for this as well. So here I need to import the team model from team.models import team. And then I can just create it. Class client, pass in models.model. And we can begin with the team reference. Team equals models.foreign key, pass in team. And then we need to set something called the related name. And this can be clients. So what this does is that it makes it very easy to get all of the clients connected to a team. So for example, in a template or in a view, you can just say team.clients.all to get all of the clients that are connected to that team. And the last attribute is something called onDelete, and we can say models.cascade. So if we delete a team, we will also delete all of the clients connected to that team. This could also be, for example, set null or similar, but I like to just say models.cascade, which will delete everything. And then we have the name, which was just a char field. Set the max length to true, no, 255 I mean. And the created at field, which was models.date time field. Okay, maybe we should have a default value here. And what I like to do then is to just say auto now add equals true. So what this auto now add equals true does is that every time we create a new client, this field will be automatically created or filled in by Django. We have one very similar, for example, changed at equals models.date time field auto now equals true. And the difference between these two is that every time a client is saved, this will automatically be updated by Django to now. So that makes it very easy to keep track of when a client was created and when it was last saved. So now we can save this, try to run the migration script. No changes detected, of course not, because I forgot to add this to the settings file. Client, let me try again, yes. And then we can run the server. Just need to add this here as well. So from .models import client admin.site.register client. So let's go to the admin interface, refresh, then we have the clients here as well. So if I try to create one, I first need to select which team I want to use. So then I can say client 1 for team 1 and save. So now I have a client there as well, and these are now connected just as you can see here. Okay, and then I want to make it possible to have a to-do list for each of the clients. So let me create one more table, to-do list, icon, what should I use here? Let's just select one that fits very good here. ID, big, int, primary key. And here I want the reference up to the client. So client should be a foreign key. And I want the name of this to-do list. So char field. And I want to know who created this. So created by is also a foreign key. Maybe we can also have the created head here as well, like that. So then I need a connection between the created by and the client up to these other database models. So I can say to-do list dot client points to the client.id field, and the to-do list dot created by is the user.id. So if I just close this for now, you can see here now that we have a to-do list which is connected to the client, which is then again connected to the team, which is connected to the user. The to-do list is also created, the to-do list is also connected to a user. So when we have a to-do list, we can easily see which clients this belongs to and which team the client belongs to as well. So I think I just want to have this to-do list in the same app as the client. So at the bottom here we can say class to-do list models.model. And by the way, you will learn more about the models. I just want to set up everything here so it will be easier for me to explain how things are connected and more things you can do. So here I can say client equals models.foreign key. Client related name is to-do lists, and on delete models.cascade. So since we have models.cascade on both of these, means that if we delete the team, all of the clients will be deleted, and then all of the to-do lists connected to the clients as well will be deleted. So I can copy these three, and as you saw, we also want a connection to the created at. We have created by. So created by equals models.foreign key user related name to-do lists on delete models.cascade. So then I just need to import this here again. So from Django.contrib.auth.models import user. So now it's very easy to get all of the to-do lists a user have created, and it's easier to get all of the to-do lists that's connected to a client. So now all of the tables in the database should match what we have here on this app. We could also go further here now and create one more table for the tasks, but I think you should start to get a little hang of this. So what I want to do then is to go back here and add one last table called comments. But before I do it, I want to add it here as well. So let me just change this. So I want to have one more table for comment. Icon, comment, ID big int, and I will show you soon why I want to have this. PK. And this can have the body or content text field, and when it was created, and also created by. So how should this be connected to anything here? I want to make it possible for a to-do list to have comments, and I want to make it possible for a client to have comments. So up here on the to-do list, we can add one more field here called comments. And this should be a many-to-many field. And the same can go on the client, so just paste it up here. And then at the bottom here, I can say to-do list.comments, point this to, comments, point this to comment.id. And the same with the client, client.comments, point this to client, point this to comment.id. So if we just close this now, you can see here that they have the new table here, which is just connected to the comments there and the comments there. So this isn't actually anything unique, it's just but it's good practice to have a very simple table that can be reused like this, because now this isn't really connected to anything and is not specific to a client or a to-do list or a theme or anything. So all of the table can be reused for all of the other purposes as well. So let's set this up in Django. We need to add this at the top here. Class comment models.model. And here you saw that you have the ID, which is built in, but you can add the content, which is a models.text field. And we want to know when it was created and who it was created by. So let me just copy these 3 fields, and then we can set this to comments instead. So now we have a connection between all of these, and it's very easy to get all of the comments that a user have created. So if I just import these last or newest tables here to the admin interface, we can say import comment and to do list, add them here as well, admin.site.register comment and admin.site.register to do list, and save. So then we just need to run the make migration script and the migrate script. So if I run the server again now, go back to the admin and refresh, you'll see that we have all of this here. So if I now create a new to-do list, we need to select which client this belongs to. To-do list 1 for client 1 in team 1, created by admin, and save. And we can also add a comment 1 for to-do list 1. So if I save now, this isn't actually connected to this at all. This is the only information that we have on this. But if I go into the to-do list, okay, sorry, I forgot to add it to these 2 here, of course. So here is the comments equals models.many to many field comment. Just copy this, paste it down there and save. Then we need to make migrations again, migrate, run server and refresh. And now I can select that this comment should belong to this to-do list. Okay, so I think that I can set this to blank equals true. Let me try. I sometimes forget if that is correct. On unapplied, and we can have it here because this field shouldn't really be required for something like this. So make migrations and migrate. Just want to test. Sorry, I forgot to run it. Refresh, go in here. Now you can see that this is not bold anymore, which means that we can deselect this, save, and now it's not connected anymore. Okay, so now I have set up the base tables here in Eraser. And as you can see, you now probably have a little bit better understanding of how the tables can connect to each other using many-to-many fields and foreign keys. So now I just want to show you a little bit more fields that you can use for the different data you want to store. For example, you can have a slug, models.slug field. And what the slug field is a URL friendly version of, for example, the name. So if the name is hello world, then the slug would be hello-world. So this is now the proper way to store a URL, for example, for a blog post or a page and similar. By the way, if you want to learn even more Django or Vue from me, you should check out my website codewithstein.com. The site has many premium courses and a lot of awesome blog posts. And for as little as $20 per month you will get access to all of my content and you will be able to track your progress, you can talk to me and similar. So go to codewithstein.com after the video and sign up. You also have things like Boolean fields, so for example published models.boolean field. This can either be true or false. So that's what a Boolean field means. You either have a true or a false. And this can also have an attribute called default, set this to true, so that when this is created it will be automatically set to true, or you can have the default set to false. So as you can see here, there are multiple different attributes for the fields as well. Or you can, for example, have a number of comments equals models.integer field. So an integer field is a number field, so that's one more type of field that Django has. Or the image field, so image equals models.image field, and this usually comes with attribute called upload to, for example, media / articles. So then images that are selected for this one will be uploaded to a folder called media, and inside there a folder called articles. Okay, so let's say talk a little bit more about the char field. We had the max length set to 255. This is now a required field. Let's say that we want to make this optional for the user to fill out. If we want to make it possible for Django to store empty values in the database for char fields, we can set something called blank equals true. So now this will store. If you don't fill out this field, database will store it as an empty string. Sometimes, or many times, people use both blank equals true and null equals true. And what this does is that if you try to save now, the database will be stored as null. So they will have a null value in the database. And this isn't very bad, but the problem is if you store this in the database, it will be stored as that, and if it's empty it can be stored as null. So the problem with that is that you can have two different ways to tell Django that the database field is empty. Okay, so then we can continue to talk a little bit about functions and how to design models. For example, if you have this client and we go now into the admin interface, you can see here that we just say client object 1. This is the class representation of this model class here. What if we want to show the name instead? If we want to do that, we can say def str self. So we create a method called a string to override the built-in string method, and say return self.name. So now we just return this value instead. So now you can see client 1 for team 1. Or you can customize the string if you want that. Client, put in a variable there, go back and refresh. Then you can see here to now show the whole string that you see here. But usually this is what we want. And by the way, for example, an override like this is what we want to see as the first functions in a database model. Below here we usually have custom models. So for example, def number of comments self return self.comments.count. So if you now want to know how many comments that a client has, you can just say client.number of comments and this will be returned. So this is usually the order we want to have things in a model. We have the fields first, the built-in functions or overrides, and then custom methods at the bottom. If you want to override for example, the default ordering, the name, and similar, we can add something called the class meta here and say order equals, ordering equals, I think that is correct. Then we create a list here and say name. So now this will be ordered alphabetically. Let's add one more. Second. Save. Okay, that's probably the way it was either way, but if we want to reverse this, we just minus name. Then you can see that the default ordering is reversed. And this is then the default ordering that will be used in views and similar. If you, for example, say client equals client.objects.filter or all, then this will automatically use this ordering. Okay, let's just remove this so I can close that file. Other things we can add to the meta is that here you can see client, which is the plural name for this. Sorry, the verbose name. So verbose name. For example, here we can say hello. So then it will override the name, as you can see there, and then there, hello. But this is then the plural name of hello. So if you want to override that, we can say verbose name plural equals hello, like that, and override it like that. And usually this is something we do when we, for example, have a class name category, because then Django will automatically call the plural name of this categories, which is the wrong name to spell, way to spell this in English. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the last thing that I usually use the meta for. For example, if we say here class info table, for example, this is just a random name. I will show you why I do something like this. Models.model, and then in here, let me just copy these two, paste it there, like that. So now here I can say class meta abstract equals true. So what this abstract equals true do is that this table will not be added to the database. And what's cool about this is that instead of adding these, for example, down here, I can just remove them and post in info table here instead of models.model, because this already inherits this but adds these two fields automatically down here. So I can do this for that one, I can do it for this one, and if I want to do that for the comment as well. Sorry, that was where I was supposed to add it. So now all of these three tables are inheriting this and automatically have these fields on it. Okay, this should be abstract. Let's stop and start again. Yes. Make migrations. So you can see here nothing was changed because this is only something that Django handles automatically for us. But now we don't need to have these two on either of these three tables again. So if I wanted to, as you can see here, we have the name. For example, this can also be up here if you didn't use it on there. And you can also add multiple things up here or functions. For example, you can have a function that do anything with the date and similar that you don't want to write multiple times. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about now is how to override the default save functionality. So I usually have done the client, the fields that are for this model, the meta, the string representation and built-in overrides, and then the def save method. So here we pass in self, the arguments, and kwargs. And here I can just say super, and then we call the client model self.save, pass in the args and the kwargs again. And then in here I can say print saved. So now everything of the code that I put here will be run before it's actually saved in the database. So if I go back now and go into a client and just click save, go back to the terminal, you can see here saved. So for example, what I can do here is that if hello in self.name print hello was in the name, and let's say that I don't want people to be able to store hello in the name, so then I can say self.name equals self.name.replace hello with hi instead and save. So if I now go back and refresh, try to create a new client, blah blah blah, hello, blah blah blah, save, and you can see here instead of storing this as the hello there, it was stored as hi instead because I did this override. Typically this is something you can do with replacing HTTP with HTTPS and similar. Okay, so then I just want to do one more thing. Let's say that I want to make it possible to choose between things. For example, the status for this client. So choices equals, now we create something called a tuple, and in here we create two more tuples. First, I put in the value that I want to store in the database. For example, active, and then active, and archived. So this is the value that will be stored in the database, and this is the value that you will see in the admin interface and other forms that we print this here. So status equals models.char field, max length can be set to 255, and I have a new attribute called choices equals choices, like that. So I want to make it possible to specify a default. So either I can say default equals active, but that is a little bit dumb because if here was a typo or something similar, then this wouldn't work. So what I like to do here is to say active equals active, and then use this variable down here instead. And then down here I can also say active. So now this will just point up to this, which points to this string again. And the same goes with archived, like that. So let's save and see what this looks like in the admin interface. Migrate and run server. So if I now go back and refresh, go into client, you can see here that I can select between these two, and this was automatically selected by Django. Nice. And that was everything that I want to talk about in this video. If you have any questions or things you want to learn more about for Django models, feel free to leave a comment below and I will answer as soon as I can. See you in the next video.